Welcome to this new lecture. I'm Chiara Colombi, Associate Professor at the School of Design of Politecnico di Milano, where I teach in the Fashion Design program. The aim of this lecture is to explore the business model of the contemporary fashion industry as prêt-à-porter or ready-to-wear, understanding its organizations at the level of processes and activities and professional roles. With the shift from the industrial economy to the knowledge economy, the most competitive business models have been increasingly characterized by parallel and open processes managed by professional figures owning multidisciplinary skills, combining technical and design competences with managerial know-how. In order to gain an in-depth understanding of its organization, we need to consider three characteristics specific to the fashion industry business model: the nature of its products in the form of a collection, seasonal product life cycle, and the so-called planned production and distribution model. In regard to the first point, the fashion system has the specific feature of structuring its products as a family of products and almost never as a single product. The objective of each research, design, and development cycle is to develop a whole range of products, a collection, frequently by coordinating complementary categories such as, for example, clothing and accessories, made up of new and renewed items from earlier seasons. Although the common perception of fashion is one of unbridled creativity, the collection is structured right from the beginning as a complex, coherent system defined numerically to satisfy market demands, propose new contents, and at the same time be recognizable in terms of brand identity and positioning. In regard to the second element that characterized fashion, a collection is designed, produced, and delivered on the basis of an extremely rigid seasonal calendar at a fast pace with at least 4 collections per year. Fashion is thus centered around a product life cycle management model in which obsolescence is planned and corresponds to a rigid timeline anchored to formalized seasonal calendars within a global fashion system, trade fairs, fashion weeks, sales campaigns, shop distributions, and sales. Thirdly and lastly, the traditional production and sale model of ready-to-wear model is based on the so-called planned and semi-planned cycles, in which garments and accessories to be sent to shops are produced only after buyers' orders have been collected during sales campaigns. This reduces the risk of producing in the dark and the risk for goods left unsold in the warehouse, but at the same time it generates a higher level of complexity, which leads to research and development phases being brought forward by at least a year before market launch and twofold production cycles. The purpose of the first small-scale cycle is to create samples with which to show collections to buyers and generate orders. This production cycle is frequently internalized in internal workshops or entrusted to more locally accessible and controllable local suppliers. The objective of the second and larger production cycle is final sale through the brand's many retail channels. This second production cycle is frequently managed via different supply channels from the first and larger delocalized production network. This complex and rapid organization can only be managed by means of an effective organizational integration in which the cycle as a whole is based on 3 parallel macro processes. Let's have a closer look together to a visual scheme that can condense this complexity. The central organization pillar is the creation and product development process, supported by communication planning and management and the development of markets and distribution. Leadership of these 3 macro functions is entrusted to 3 key figures: the creative director, the artistic director, and the retail general manager, who interact to a considerable extent throughout the entire product development process. Their effectiveness is based on focus and governance of the various phases in each macro process, while coordination is guaranteed by intermediate managerial roles such as collection direction, brand management, merchandising, and product management. In this way, data from retail channels can be used in the collection architecture planning phase, which is in turn adapted to retail demands during the sales campaign. On the other hand, the communication process is aligned to the collection planning stage to make artistic choices coherent with product contents, to the sample collections launch phase via communication and events organized at the trade fairs and fashion weeks, and lastly, to the retail phase, with a media campaign to target products to end consumers. The central phase, which guides the other two, is thus collection creation, which is conceived as a single project made of a multiplicity of phases reiterated at the least twice a year. The season begins with a creative briefing, which sums up the inspirational research which has been developed by the creative director and the team of designers. With the elaboration of market data, the creative brief then converges into a full-blown project brief, which defines collection architecture, namely the ideal product mix for each occasion of use, merchandise categories, and price tiers. Following the brief, the design department generates a series of style proposals and technical drawings. In this stage, the product manager is responsible for bringing the collection to fruition, checking technical and stylistic aspects in the prototyping phase, and managing the possible deviations from the original ideal design. Prototype approval sets the sample production cycle in motion with fabrics and materials orders and the production of each style. At this stage, the complete collection book is structured and it defines all the fabric color variations, which will be made available for each item. On the basis of technical characteristics and strategic brand positioning, lastly, prices are defined for each product in the catalog. With this brief but dense overview, we have covered the main points of the organizational model of contemporary fashion. In particular, we have now understood how the ready-to-wear business model is based on very structured processes where creative insights are nurtured through a deep continuative research and supported by structured planning and managing activities thanks to the codification of distinctive professional roles.